everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Holly, and today I'm going to be talking about some tips and tricks that I did in order to have 2 unmedicated and natural births. This right here is my second baby, and he is going to be with us in and out of this video because you got to film when you can, you know? So in case you are new here, I love to make videos on motherhood, on Montessori, and just day in the life videos. So if you are interested in any of those things, keep on watching and hopefully subscribe. Alright, so I have 10 tips and tricks for you guys, things that really helped me for both of my labor and deliveries. I think a lot of people will sometimes just look at birth as just a medical procedure, that it just like gets done and they don't really care what happens throughout the experience. And if that's you, that's totally fine. Like, that's all good. Like, birth is really just whatever the mother wants it to be and like the experience that they want it to be. So if you don't really care, like whatever happens, which you do have to have a sense of that when you're going into birth, because it is going to be a little bit crazy no matter what you do. But I really think that preparing yourself and your mind and your body is so important. It can really lead to a great experience, and it doesn't have to be traumatic. And it can just be just a very spiritual, uplifting thing, bringing in these little babies into the world. So without further ado, let's get into it. I have these 10 tips just put into 2 different categories. The first is to prepare yourself before you're actually in labor. And then the second is all during labor and how to cope with the contractions or expansions. The very first tip I have for you guys is to take a birthing class. I think that this was so incredibly helpful for me and for my husband Darren, just to be able to really understand what exactly is going on when you're giving birth, you know, what the baby is doing, how your body is working, and all of the different stages and like everything. Really, birthing classes like teach you so much, and I just highly recommend it, especially if you are wanting something a little bit more specific for your birth. And like I said, throughout all of this, like, you do need to be very flexible, but you can go in with some goals in mind. And even if you are going in planning on an epidural and everything like that, I would still suggest going to a birthing class just so you can understand a little bit more about what your body is doing and what the baby is doing. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to prepare your support person. For me, it was my husband, to be your advocate. So when you are in labor, a lot of times you're not thinking clearly, you're very focused on what you're doing, you don't want to be talking to nurses all the time and everything like that. So preparing your support person, I think, is really important. Tell them beforehand what especially you want. What is your idea of labor, what you want to be wearing, what you want to be doing, what you want the nurses to do, different things like that, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with. Also teach them some different labor positions, or teach them just ways that they can support you while you are in labor. Another great way that you can find support is through a doula. So if you want to hire a doula, I highly recommend it. I had one for my first baby. It was just my sister-in-law, and she was really helpful. For my second, I didn't because of COVID. But I think the doulas can be really awesome and a really great support person and advocate for you. Number 3 is by your 3rd trimester, I would really start focusing on meditation and your positive birth affirmations and really repeating those throughout the day. Every day, take the time. I'm like holding this for my baby. Every day, take the time to really think about your positive birth story, picture it in your mind, what exactly you want to have happen, and really focus on meditating, on your breathing, on being very calm. This can be so helpful leading up to your birth and just your mindset every day. And also when you're in labor, it just is going to be great that you already have practiced that meditation. You've already practiced taking yourself to a place that is calm and peaceful, where you can open up and be really in the moment and relaxed at the same time. Number 4 is to use some different supplements. So obviously talk to your doctor or your midwife about different supplements that you want to be taking. For me, I did red raspberry leaf tea, which I found was really helpful. And then I also took primrose oil and this gentle birth serum. So all of these things, I mean, obviously, like I said before, ask your midwife before you take them, or your doctor, but they really helped me, I feel like. And I don't think any of these have really been proven to help. There hasn't been a ton of research on it, but I feel like, why not? This gentle birth serum I would be careful about, because it does say it can increase your blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure, I wouldn't recommend taking it. Otherwise, I would just take, see what your midwife says or whatever, but I really enjoyed it. I think that it helped my births go by really quickly. My first birth, I was induced, but I did not have an epidural, and I think it did go by really slowly, but I think it was because I was induced. My second birth, I took the gentle birth and I wasn't induced, and I feel like it went by really quickly. Once my water broke, I had my baby in my arms and after 45 minutes. So I think that taking these supplements really helped to prepare my body to have a quick natural labor. And number 5 for this category is to go on lots of walks and to also bounce on your birthing ball. Birthing balls are really helpful. It's going to help bring the baby down lower, and so the baby's going to be in a better position when you give birth, and it'll also start inducing labor when your baby is ready. And going on lots of walks is going to do the same thing. It's also just going to increase your stamina. It's just really healthy for you. So I would highly recommend just being a little bit more active, even though I know it's so hard, because being that pregnant is really, really hard. I think being pregnant is honestly one of the hardest things in the world to do. So you got this if you are pregnant in your 3rd trimester, preparing for birth. I know that you can do it. My next 5 tips for you guys are all while you are in labor. So these are all things that, you have started feeling those contractions coming on, and you're like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? If an unmedicated birth is your goal, I would definitely recommend trying to stay home as long as possible, because once you're in the hospital, it really is going to set you back a little bit. You are going to be not as relaxed, not in your own environment. While you are at home and in those early stages of labor, I would definitely recommend just resting. So like taking a nap if you can, taking a nice relaxing bath, just like really letting yourself relax and get a lot of rest. So once you are in active labor, I definitely would recommend using some counter pressures. I loved counter pressures with both of my kids. My first, when I was induced, the only thing I feel like that got me through it was like knee pushes. So I would sit on the bed and my husband or a nurse or my mom would push on my knees literally as hard as they could. I had 2 huge bruises on my knees the day after I gave birth, but that helped so much. When you push on your knees, it sets your hips back and just opens you up. It feels seriously so good while you're in labor. So I would highly recommend some knee pushes. Teach your spouse. A lot of nurses already know counter pressors and everything like that. So I would just recommend to teach your spouse, or if you hire a doula, then they obviously know a lot of counter pressures. My 8th tip is for when you are in a contraction or an expansion, and that is to just relax. Just relax your body, relax your hands, make sure that they are open, they're not squeezed into a fist because that's not relaxed. Make sure, focus on your hands, make sure they're open, focus on your breathing, make sure it's deep breaths, and focus on the sounds you're making. You don't want to make like high-pitched, loud noises. You want your sounds to be low, your voice to be low, because that is calm, it's relaxed, it's open, and that's what you need. Oh, and just remember that expansion is like a wave, right? So you're going to be building up to it, and that peak will last about 10 seconds, and you can do anything for 10 seconds. I know you can. So those 10 seconds will feel really long, but it's going to go back down, and you'll have a time of rest. So I would really just know that you can do that for 10 seconds and just relax during that expansion. My 9th tip is for when you are in a rest period, so in between expansions. And during this time, make sure to take a sip of water or whatever liquid you have, like coconut water is really great for you. And just making sure that you stay really hydrated is so important. So take that time to really just rest, let yourself have deep breaths, relax, and calm down, and just sit with yourself. You can think of positive affirmations. You can focus back on that meditation, anything like that. And my very last tip for you guys is tip number 10, and that is to just focus on the one expansion that you are focused on right then. Don't worry about the 100 other expansions that are coming up. Don't worry about the hours that you have. Just focus on one at a time. And if you focus on the one at a time, you will be able to get through it. Focus on bringing your baby here and the amazing feeling it's going to be once you have your baby. So I really love to think of just one word a lot of the times when I was in an expansion or a rest period even, and just thinking of love or baby, I would kind of pick a word for that expansion, and I would just repeat that in my mind over and over and over until I could rest. And another just bonus tip for you guys is that I once heard that the difference between a traumatic birth and a positive birth is consent. So no matter what you do, just understand what your options are, understand what is going on, have your partner there who can help you understand that when you are in a vulnerable place, For both of these journeys, they were so different for my two kids. My first, I was induced. And I chose that and I consented to that and I felt good about it. And my second, I consented to having my water broken and I felt good about that and I consented to that and I was informed and that's what I chose. And I think that neither of my birth experiences, though they were so difficult and really, really hard, I wouldn't consider them traumatic. And I think that's because I gave the consent for the different things that happened. So I really hope that you all do your research and really decide what you want before you go into your birthing experience. I'd also love to hear some of your tips in the comments. Let me know what your birth experience was like and I'd love to hear it. I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.